Hello, today we will be doing a brief Firebase web tutorial. We will go over the process of creating a Firebase project, creating an index page, adding users, and saving data. For those who do not know, Firebase is a free online database service created by Google. Firebase allows web developers to easily integrate live database functionality into their sites using JavaScript-like syntax. Firebase is a better database for beginners than an SQL server for several reasons. Firebase is relatively simple, very user-friendly, requires no downloads, and relies on the languages programmers are probably already familiar with. It's also free. Firebase can be used across several platforms including web, iOS, and Android. We will be focusing exclusively on the web platform today. To begin, let's walk through the process of creating a new Firebase project. Start by Googling Firebase. Select the first link that appears. Click the button labeled Get Started for Free. This should bring you to your Firebase console. From there, select Create New Project. We will start by learning how to create new users, so select Authentication in the sidebar. You will be prompted to set up a sign-in method. In this tutorial, we will be doing a simple email password sign-in method, so click on this option to enable it. As you can see, there are other sign-in methods which can just as easily be integrated. In order to add a user, we must have a simple sign-in page. You can make an HTML page in your preferred code editor, but we recommend using brackets or Notepad++. Today we will be using brackets because it's a very user-friendly program. Once you have opened your program of choice, create a new HTML file. You can make your own sign-in page, or you can get started quickly by borrowing the template we included in the description. Now that you have a sign-in page, let's integrate Firebase. Return to your Firebase console. Click Web Setup in the top right corner, and copy the code provided. Paste this code below the endBody tag. Our first task will be to create a new user when the Sign Up button is clicked. First, let us create the function we want this button to call when clicked. In the script, below the place where Firebase is initiated, make a function called create. We need to link this function to the sign-in button. To do this, return to the place in the HTML where the sign-in button is created. Add an on-click event like so. Now, when this button is clicked, it will call the create function. When the sign up button is clicked, we want to retrieve the user's email and password from the text fields and use them to create a new user in Firebase. To do this, we'll use a little jQuery. This command retrieves the value of anything with the ID input email. The next line does the same exact thing, but for anything with the ID input password. Finally, we are ready to authenticate users. Return to Firebase. Click Docs, Guides, Authentication, Web, and then Password Authentication. Copy the code under the Create a Password-Based Account section and paste it into the Create function.
If all the steps were successful, You should now be able to authenticate users when the Sign In button is clicked. You can check that this is working by returning to your Sign In page and attempting to sign in. In your Firebase console, navigate to Authentication and refresh the Users page. You will notice that the new user has both the email they entered and a unique UID. Every new user gets a unique UID. We will use this UID later. Now we are ready to save data. Saving data is slightly different than authenticating users. Data saving occurs under the Database tab in the console. Let us start by saving user emails in the database. When a new user is authenticated, we want to create a node in the database which will hold information for that user. Right now, we don't have much information to store, just the user's email. But you will probably need to save more data later, depending on the functionality of your website. I will create a new node in the database as soon as our new user is authenticated. To detect when a user has been authenticated, you can use another Firebase function called onAuthStateChanged. The code for this function is at the following link. Copy the code snippet and place it below the create function. This code will alert us when a user has been authenticated. In our case, the function will be called when a new user is successfully created. It will also alert us if a user signs out or if a returning user signs in. Within the authStateChanged function, there is an if statement that says if user. This statement is true if a user has just successfully logged in or signed up. This is the part of the onAuthStateChange that we are currently interested in. Within this if statement, we need to do two things. First, we need to retrieve the user's email again in order to save it in the database. This is easy. Just copy the first jQuery line from the create function. Second, we need to save this information in the database. This will require the .set function. The .set function allows us to save data to a particular path. In this case, I will be saving the data to a path named after the user's UID. Since every UID is unique, a user's UID is a good means of identification. The .set function is very convenient because it allows you to save data in any path you want. If the path you are trying to save data in does not exist, Firebase will simply create the path you specified. We will save our user data under a node called users, although you can create whatever path name you want. This is our .set code, which I copied from the Firebase website and modified. First, we make a Firebase reference. Then, we specify a path. This path is composed of the general users and then this specific user's UID. Now, we are ready to save data. Within the .set function, we first name the information we are saving. Since we are saving the user's email, I will name the information email. Then, we type the name of the variable where data is stored. In this case, the variable is also called email, so we will type email:\email. If I wanted to save a specific value under email, I would put it in quotes like so. You can also go to the rules section of your database and change who is allowed to read and write to the database. I changed my read and write rules to true so that anyone can read or write to the database. Now let's return to our sign-in page and try our code. When a new user is created, data is stored under the authentication section and in the database. Thanks for watching this tutorial. If you have any questions, I'll be sure to respond to them in the comments section below.